Well, hello and welcome to another video by Financial Learning. On today's video, we're going to look at the Bitcoin mining stocks. We're going to take a look at that short interest percent of free float for the week. We're going to see if that Deepseek information at the beginning of the week or the Trump tariffs had any impact on the short interest percent. We're going to take a look at 14 of these Bitcoin mining stocks. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, rounding at the bottom of our list is going to be number 14. This is BitFuFu, ticker symbol FUFU. We're going to take a look at Thursday's trading data, and then we'll move over to Friday's live short interest data. And also at the bottom left, you can actually get an idea of some of those daily price action bar graph here. So we're going to jump up into that Thursday data. Short interest percent of free float was sitting at 1.6%. Looking back 7 days prior, was at 1.48%. So has increased over the past week. Take a look at days to cover. It's at 1.54 days. And then moving over to the right-hand side, utilization is at 41.15%. And just a reminder, the utilization is calculated by the number of shares sold short divided by the overall amount of shares on loan. And the short score is at 60.9. Taking a look at that live short interest data as of Friday's trading session, the live short interest percent of free float is 1.58%. So that is a slight decrease compared to Thursday's trading day. And taking a look at that interactive broker short availability, last reported shorts available is just 1,000, and the cost to borrow is at 29.25%. All right, coming in at number 13 on our list is going to be CANG. That is ticker symbol CANG. They had a short interest percent of free float on Thursday at 2.43%. Looking back 1 week prior, it was at 2.3%, so a slight increase on short interest percent of free float. Taking a look at days to cover, it's at 1.6 days, and then moving over to utilization, sitting at 35.55%. And finally, short score at 47.9. Now moving down to the live short interest data. This is as of that Friday trading session. The live short interest percent of free float is at 2.31%. So that is a decrease compared to that Thursday trading session. And finally, taking a look at the interactive broker shorts availability, they had a last reported shares available at 3,000 shares with a cost to borrow at 0.58%. All right, taking a look at number 12 on our list, this is HIVE Digital Technologies. That is ticker symbol HIVE. They had a short interest percent of free float at 4.12%. Taking a look 7 days prior, was at 3.28%. So a slight increase in short interest percent for HIVE. Looking at days to cover, it's at 0.62 days, and then moving over to utilization, sitting at 41.77%. Short score is at 49.52. Taking a look at that Friday live short interest data, their percent of free float for short interest was sitting at 4.33%. So that is an increase compared to that Thursday trading day. Now, before we move on to look at the interactive broker shorts availability, I did want to mention that Hive did put out a press release this trading week in terms of a letter of intent with Bitfarms. They were purchasing one of the Paraguay locations to be able to expand their Bitcoin mining operations. They were looking for a very high 25 exahash target by, I believe, September month. So again, the price did see some nice upward movement this trading week, and that does give shorts opportunity to jump in at that higher pricing, hoping for a downward movement. So just keep that in mind. You may see this when some of these other companies do put out some nice press releases that would potentially bring value to the company. It's still an unknown if it's quite a few months out. So just recall that when you're looking at how some of these short volume and that short percent interest does change over time. All right, and lastly, interactive broker shorts availability. Last reported shares available at 700,000 with a cost to borrow at 0.95%. Coming in at number 11 on our list is CIFR Mining. That is ticker symbol CIFR. They had a short interest percent of free float at 9.13%. Taking a look 7 days prior, was at 9.44%. So they did have a short percent reduction for CIFR Mining. Take a look at days to cover. It's at 1.98 days, and that utilization is at just 32.64%, leaving them with a short score of 57.97. Taking a look at that Friday live short interest data for CIFR, the live short interest percent of free float is at 9.11%. So again, that's a drop in short interest percent for CIFR. And finally, taking a look at that interactive broker short availability, last reported shares available at 1.9 million with a cost to borrow of 0.4%. All right, coming in at number 10 on our list is Iris Energy. That is ticker symbol IREN. They had a short interest percent of free float at 9.82%. Taking a look 7 days prior, it was just at 7.57%. So they have had a slight increase in that short percent over this last week of trading. Taking a look at that days to cover, it is at 1.12 days, and utilization sitting at 72.79%, leaving them with a short score of 63.52. Dropping down to that live short interest data, and this is that percent of free float as of Friday trading day, it is at 9.56%. So a slight decrease in short interest percent of free float for IREN on that Friday trading period. And one last thing to look at for IREN is going to be the interactive broker short availability. Last reported shares available at 5 million with a cost of borrow at 0.47%. Coming in at number 9 on our list is HUT8, that is ticker symbol HUT. They had a short interest percent of free float at 14.42%. Taking a look 7 days prior was at 13.58%. So a slight increase in short interest percent for this past week for HUT. Looking at days to cover, they are at 1.47 days and utilization percent sitting at 40.69. That leaves them with a short score of 63.11. Taking a look down at that live short interest data for free float as of that Friday trading session, they're sitting at 14.42%. So just about flat, just based off of a handful of shares, that short interest percent did increase. And finally, interactive broker shorts availability here for HUT8. Shares available last reported came in at 850,000 with a cost to borrow of 0.77%. All right, coming in at number 8 on our list, this is Bitfarms, that is ticker symbol BITF. They had a short interest percent of free float at 16.14%. Taking a look 7 days prior was at 15.31%. Moving over to days to cover, they're at 1.3 days and a utilization of 87.84%. That leaves them with a short score of 71.89. Take a look at that Friday short interest percent of free float. It's at 16.19%. That's a slight increase compared to that Thursday trading day. All right, moving down to interactive brokers short availability. Last reported shares available sitting at 60,000 with a cost to borrow of 7.97%. And coming in at number 7 on our list, this is Core Scientific. That is ticker symbol CORZ. They had a short interest percent of free float at 17.27%. Looking back 7 days prior, it was at 18.36%. So a slight decrease in short interest percent for Core. Looking at short interest, it actually is at 3.51 days and utilization at 28.15%. That gives them a short score of 62.08. Looking at that live short interest data for free float on Friday, they're at 17.21%. So a slight decrease compared to that Thursday trading period. And interactive broker shorts availability. Last reported shares available was greater than 10 million with a cost of borrow of 0.27%. All right, coming in at number 6 on our list is Riot Platforms, that is ticker symbol RIOT. They had a short interest percent of free float at 22.46%. Looking back 7 days prior, it was at 20.8%, so a slight increase in short interest percent from 7 days prior. And days to cover, they are at 1.95 days. Utilization is sitting at 45.52 with a short score of 66.57. Moving down to that live short interest data, this is that percent of free float sold short as of that Friday trading period. They're sitting at 22.41%. That is a slight decrease compared to that Thursday trading period. And looking at interactive brokers short availability, they had a last reported shares available at 2 million with the cost to borrow sitting at 0.37%. All right, rounding out the bottom of our top 5 Bitcoin mining stocks when it comes to that short interest percent of free float, you have Mara Holdings. That is ticker symbol MARA. They had a short interest percent of free float at 23.94%. Looking back 7 days prior, it was at 26.01%. That is a substantial decrease in that short interest percent of free float for Mara. Looking at days to cover, they are at 1.38 days, and that utilization sitting at 73.03%. Short score is at 70. Looking down at that live short interest percent of free float, this is for that Friday trading session, it is at 23.76%. So a slight decrease again for that short interest on Mara. And finally, for Mara Interactive Broker shorts availability, last reported shares available just 400,000 shares with a cost of borrow of 0.37%. All right, coming in at number 4 on our list, this is Bit Digital. That is ticker symbol BTBT. They had a short interest percent of free float of 23.87%, and looking back 7 days prior, it was at 24.58%. So a slight reduction in short interest percent of free float. Looking at days to cover, they are at 1.77 days, and the utilization is sitting at a high 82.48%. Their short score is at 69.57. Looking down on that live short interest data for BTBT, their short interest percent of free float is at 23.92%. That is a slight increase compared to that Thursday trading period. And lastly, looking at Interactive Brokers short availability, last reported shares available is sitting at 200,000 with a cost to borrow of 0.48%. All right, and number 3 on our list, this is TeraWulf. That is ticker symbol WULF. They had a short interest percent of free float of 25.91%. Looking back 7 days prior, it was at 22.66%. So a pretty significant increase on short interest percent for TeraWulf. Looking at short interest, days to cover is at 2.27 days, and the utilization sitting at 69.13%. Short score at 69.63. Looking down at that live short interest data for TeraWulf, this is that percent of free float for that Friday trading period. It is sitting at 25.82%. That is a slight decrease compared to that Thursday trading period. And finally, looking at Interactive Broker short availability, shares available last reported came in at 450,000 with a cost to borrow of 0.48%. All right, coming in as runner-up, this is number 2, CleanSpark. That is ticker symbol CLSK. They had a short interest percent of free float at 27.58%. Taking a look 7 days prior was at 25.41%. So that is a slight increase in short interest percent for CleanSpark. Looking at days to cover, it is 2.24 days, and utilization sitting rather high at 78.8%. That leaves them a short score of 70.93. Moving down to live short interest data, this is that percent of free float sold short as of that Friday trading period. CleanSpark sitting at 27.58%. That is a slight decrease compared to that Thursday trading period. And looking at Interactive Brokers short availability for CleanSpark, their last reported shares available is sitting at 1.2 million. Their cost to borrow is at 1.17%. And topping our list at number 1, this is BitDeer, ticker symbol BTDR. They had a short interest percent of free float at 32.7%. Taking a look just 7 days prior, it was at 31.7%. So a slight 1% increase for BitDeer. Looking at the days to cover, they're sitting at 1.64 days. And moving over to utilization, it's at 93.18%, leaving them a short score of 69.88. Looking down at that live short interest data for BitDeer, this is as of that Friday trading period, their percent of free float shorted is still sitting at 32.7%. So it is a flat short interest percent looking at that Thursday compared to Friday trading day. And looking at the Interactive Brokers short availability, this is last reported shares available at 2.2 million with a cost to borrow at 1.24%. All right, and I'd like to take a look at the entire Bitcoin mining sector as a whole. We're going to look at that short interest percent for the sector, and we're going to compare it against last week's numbers. So starting with that price, anything that's red means that it closed below the previous trading day period, and shares sold short, you can see as a sector, total sum was 507 million. Using the last price plus the shares sold short, you can figure out that the short value for the sector is sitting at 4.9 billion. That is billion with a B. And the short interest percent of free float, looking at the free float calculation as well, so that short interest percent for the sector is at 18.65%. Now, that is a rather large average of shares sold short. But if you compare that against a week prior, you can see that it is actually a drop of 1%. So some of the money is getting out of the Bitcoin mining sector in terms of selling short. You can actually look at the overall free float value, and this is because of some of the panic in the market between the Deepseek information early on in the week, and then, of course, the Trump tariff situation that we closed the week with. The overall sector lost $3.5 billion. Now, you may be scratching your head saying, well, the shares sold short, that percent went down by a percentage, but yet the overall value dropped. So if you think about it, if you were shorting the stock and now 3.5 billions dropped out of that overall market cap for the sector, it seems like a pretty good time to close your trade. You're going to be able to make a little bit of money. So that explains, in my opinion at least, why the shares sold short actually ended up dropping and the price actually dropped as well. So, again, that's just my opinion. And then looking at the overall shorted value, that value has decreased by about 574 million. And that has a lot to do with the fact that the average price for the overall Bitcoin mining stock has dropped, obviously reflected by that market cap. All right, and that wraps it up for me, folks. Hope you enjoyed this quick little update on the Bitcoin mining sector. I like to give these week over week and just kind of do a quick comparison to see how the overall sector is doing. Are there any specific ones that happen to jump out that are kind of breaking out of this sector in terms of this short interest? So it's always good to take a look at that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and drop me a comment. Let me know your thoughts about shorting stocks. Let me know your thoughts about the Bitcoin mining sector. Do you think short interest is going to start dropping as earnings starts to come out? You can take a look at the earnings calendar. You're going to see quite a few of these Bitcoin mining companies early to mid-February are going to be putting out their earnings reports. I am very anxious and excited to see what they come up with. And as the price of Bitcoin continues to staying up high, I feel that the risk of the short position is going to become more and more. So if you agree, drop it in the comment. Let me know. And with all that said, hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you on the next one.